Now I know it's easy to list several because kids and spouses. All right, settle down. It's about me. Come on. It's easy to list several because kids and spouses can push our buttons like nobody else. Can I get an amen on that? Absolutely. They can push our buttons like nobody else. It was interesting to see that video that talked about that man saying sometimes, it was scarier being in the home than it was being even in combat, right? And I think all of us can relate to that because the relationships that we have in our home matter so much to us. And yet, because of that closeness, we can push each other's buttons. And it's easy, very easy, to lose it. We all lose it with our kids. We lose it with our spouses. I'll tell you a story. My kids were 4 and 2, and it was one of those Saturday mornings where my wife and I had stayed up too late on Friday night, which guarantees that the kids get up too early on Saturday morning. It's just a perfect recipe. And there's a lot of crying, and there's a lot of whining, there's a lot of screaming, and the kids were upset as well. So I decided, you know what, we need a change of scenery. Let's get out of the house. Let's go to Waffle House. We live in Atlanta, so everybody familiar with Waffle House? Yeah, absolutely, yeah. They're a plague. They started in Atlanta. They're spreading to your town, if it's not already there. So the kids knew what this meant. Yay, waffle syrup. So we get in the minivan. We drive to Waffle House. Don't know if you've been to Waffle House on a Saturday morning recently, but packed. To the gills, packed. It's going to be an hour wait. We don't want to do that. So we get in the car, and we drive 100 yards or so to the next Waffle House. And this one was packed as well, but they were thinking. They had tables set up with blank pieces of paper, and if your kid drew a picture with crayons, then you got a free waffle. They had these hats that the grill man wears, and then those paper hats, and we're playing with those. And before you know it, we're seated. Now, those of us with more than one kid, yeah, a lot of us, yeah, you can remember when your kids were young and you go out to eat. Whoever was on your side of the booth is kind of your territory. So I'm looking across the table at my wife and 4-year-old daughter, and they're enjoying this angelic scene of peace and harmony. There's little birdies floating over their heads. They're feeding each other their waffles, right? And meanwhile, me and my 2-year-old son, it is World War III. Nothing is making him happy. He's really being too. Does anybody know what that's like? He takes a fork, he throws it, it hits the leg of the guy over here, and I'm just fuming inside. And you know how you can feel people's eyes on you? It's a literal palpable feeling, right? But I think, okay, he's hungry. As soon as the waffle comes, everything's going to be fine. So they bring the waffle out. I start to cut the waffle up. He doesn't want the waffle cut up. I don't know. Is he going to eat it like this? Who knows? He's just being too. So he takes the plate with the waffle on it, shoves it off the table. Plate breaks. Waffle splatters over everyone's feet. I yank him up. His foot hits the back of the head of the guy sitting in the booth behind us. I'm sorry, but I know I have to get him out of there, right? Because he is obviously the one that's out of control. So we storm out of there, and you know the architecture of Waffle House, these floor-to-ceiling glass walls, and I slam open the door, and now the entire glass wall is reverberating. So whoever wasn't watching this scene on the inside is now watching from the inside, is watching me on the outside, on the sidewalk, and I'm pointing, and I'm yelling, and I'm making all these threats, and I'm almost shaking him, and I'm doing whatever it takes to get him under control, right? Because he's the one that's out of control. So this takes a long time. And so somehow mercifully it comes to an end. We traipse back in. There's a fresh waffle. He's kind of sobbing, but he's starting to eat his waffle. And I sit down, I look across the table, and I know that my wife is trying to be supportive, but she cannot contain the smirk on her face. I said, what? And she said, nice hat. Because the entire time, I still had this quality piece of merchandise squarely on the head. As I'm pointing at him, and I'm yelling at him, and I'm doing whatever it takes to get him to take me seriously, right? With the stupid hat on the head. And thankfully, I did have the wherewithal to realize that I didn't really need the hat to make me look silly. So I was doing that all on my own, because I was doing what we all end up doing at one time or another. I was acting just as immature as my child, but doing it in a way that somehow doing it stronger or forcefully or louder was going to magically make him act more mature. I lost it. And we all lose it with our kids and our spouses. This is not something that you have to have PTSD to encounter. We all lose it. In fact, there's a study, University of New Hampshire, says 98% of parents have an emotionally damaging outburst towards their kids before the age of 5. So we're all, and we know the other 2% are just lying about it, right? Because, again, they can push our buttons. What scream-free parenting and scream-free marriage, what it asks us to do is take a step back and recognize, well, when did I give them my remote control in the first place? When did I give them that access to my emotional mindset, to my emotional control? We say they push my buttons as if it's their fault. But scream-free says, you know what, I'm the one who lost it. And what's the it in that sentence? Well, the it is my adulthood. That in the heat of the moment, I sacrifice the very thing that differentiates me from my child, and then I'm wondering why he doesn't respect me. Why should he? I've given him no reason to. I've let him know basically, you know what, my functioning is now in your hands. Because when we lose it like this, it doesn't matter what words are coming out of our mouths, we're only communicating three. Calm me down. I cannot handle the fact that you're making this choice, so I need you to not make this choice so that I can regain my composure. And then again, we wonder why they don't respect us. Scream-free wants to look at this, not just screaming, but anytime we get emotionally reactive in our relationships. And it is so easy to do. One of the reasons why, and I'll tell you about this in a second, but one of the reasons why I think we have had success at the installation level, we've been to about a dozen so far, but is because we're not coming at it from, you know what, you are a patient sick, in need of healing. No, you're just a parent, and parenting is difficult. It's really, really difficult for everybody. It's more difficult than any of us could have ever imagined. In fact, had we known how difficult it was going to be before we did it, then the population would be dwindling at this point, right? Not exploding. And marriage is the same way. And nothing can fully prepare us for those things except those things, getting into the environment. So what I think is happening is people are attracted to this program because we're trying to lessen the stigma associated with reaching out for help. This is a preventative program that helps us just all relax and say, you know what, we're all in this together, in that it is really difficult. But one of the things we didn't say is we actually believe it's supposed to be. Parenting and marriage are supposed to be difficult because it's not just about our kids growing up. It's about us growing up. Because nothing has asked me to grow up like being married or having kids. You know, nothing has asked me to be more patient, to be more consistent, to have more integrity, to mean what I say and follow through on what I say. Nothing asks me of that, that of me like being in a family. And so instead of fighting against that and thinking it shouldn't be this way, then recognize, no, it is this way. Now what am I going to do? And what does it call me to do? It calls me to ultimately just stay calm. Because when we get reactive, it doesn't just make things worse. It actually creates the very outcomes we were hoping to avoid. I tell a story in the program about my son. He's 2 years old, and we moved into a new house with a 2-story stairwell attached to one wall, which left a banister on the other side of the steps and a little ledge of step on the outside of the banister. Does everybody know where this story's going, right? I come out of my bedroom, top of the stairs, and I hear, "Hi, Daddy." And there's my 2-year-old son just climbing up on the outsides of the stairs, his toes on that little ledge of step. And he's just hanging on to the banister pickets like this, right? Nothing below him but hardwood floors. He's about, I don't know, his feet are about 5 feet off the ground. Okay, Mr. Scream-Free, what the heck are you going to do now, right? Now, I wasn't planning on going downstairs. I could have just kept on trucking down the hall, hope I don't hear a splat, hope it works out for the best. I hear all the time, well, I'm not a screaming parent, I'm a laid-back parent. Well, that's just another form of screaming, because what you're doing is emotionally disconnecting from the situation because you can't handle being close to it. And usually the laid-back parent is married to an openly screaming parent who's having to make up for your laid-backness. Did I just describe every marriage in here? Right. But my integrity demands that I stay connected to this situation. My son's in mortal danger. But what happens if I stay connected but I can't stay calm? What happens if I lunge for him, if I give in to the natural panic, if I scream? It just increases the likelihood that he'll fall. That's why my number one job as a parent is to, no matter what, just stay calm. That's why we focus so much on becoming scream-free. You know, what's fascinating about this is what we're learning from soldiers is that in so many ways that's what defines great leadership in the battlefield as well, the ability to stay calm in the midst of the fray. It doesn't matter what stripes are on your uniform if you are the calmest one. That's what the feedback. And so instead of saying what you learned on the battlefield you now need to erase as you go into the home, it's like, no, I want to learn from you about how to stay calm in chaos because I'm facing chaos every morning. And that's what's actually required of me. Not to say all the right things at all the right times and have all the perfect designed consequences that's going to magically change their behavior forever, which don't exist, by the way. But instead, what attitudes, what can I do to calm myself down so that I don't automatically create the worst outcomes possible. Because it's in every interaction that we face, with our spouses as well. I mean, let's just pretend that you've encountered this situation, because I know none of you have encountered this situation where the stereotype of the man calling the woman and saying, hey, I'm going to be home at 6, and she's got dinner ready and warm at 6, and I know you've never encountered any situation like this, right? And the kids are at bay even though they're starving, right? And then he calls at 6:15, hey, just another 15 minutes, whatever. Finally shows up at 7, and what does she do? She just explodes on him, which is justifiable, but what does it do? It doesn't create the likelihood that he'll want to come home next time. He thinks, I don't want to come home to that, right? Contrast that with what my wife would do, is if I came home at 7, then dinner would be over. Dinner's over, and they're already cleaned up, and maybe she'll save me a plate, but it was just, hey, we would love to have you. That's it. So we teach spouses how to be calm. We teach parents how to be calm because it's the most important factor there is. And it's amazing what happens when you are calm. I mean, if you were standing up here, this would be a tense situation for you if you were speaking to this audience, right? Jerry Seinfeld has this thing about the number one fear that people have is public speaking, and it's even higher than death, so that at a funeral, you'd rather be in the casket than delivering the eulogy, right? So being in this situation would be tense for you. And if I got very, very anxious, it would make you anxious. But what happens if I get calm? What happens if I get quiet? See, you're listening to me even more intently than you were before. I mean, those of you who are asleep are now awake, wondering what's going on. It's amazing power of calm. Tony Dungy talked about how he was so different as an NFL coach because he would call all his players together at the beginning of each training camp and he would address them the same way. He'd say, men, I want you to listen to me very carefully. You will not hear me get louder than I am right now throughout this whole season. But if I get quieter than I am right now, then you know you would really better listen. Because what he learned and what we're teaching parents is to let the consequences do the screaming. To let the natural, logical consequences do the screaming. So instead, you drive up in the driveway, and your daughter's left her bike out. And it's the third night in a row. So what do you want to do? Run that sucker over. That's right. And then back over it again and run it over it again. And that'll show her, right? But instead, what do? We go storming into the house saying, how many times am I going to tell you? Just once, I want to hear a kid say, I don't know. How many? Why are you asking me? Right? Instead, a scream-free parent has some new options. You go in, say, hey, honey, saw that you rode your bike. Hope you had a great time. Saw that you left it out. So now you have a choice. You can bring it into the garage where it belongs, or you can choose to leave it out in the driveway. That's your choice. I'll respect either choice. Now, if I get up in the morning and it's still in the driveway, then I'm going to take it and give it to Goodwill. That's it. All I have to do is get up. I don't have to respond, hey, you know what? It's past dinner time. You better go check. I'm not going to remind you again. No, now I'm not responsible for her behavior. She is, which is the whole goal of parenting, is to help them become more responsible for their behavior, right? And so all I have to do is respond accordingly. We're trying to give parents these tools to help them command in a way that is calm and in a way that's actually effective at the thing we want most. We want our kids to become good decision makers. We can't do that if all we're doing is, out of our anxiety, protecting them, restricting their freedom, and then say, when they're 18, say, here's your freedom. I don't know about you, but I have a plan that is going to launch my kids out of my house. I think we do our kids a disservice by saying, you can be anything you want to be. No, you can't. You cannot be unemployed and living in my house at 25 years old. Just not a career path for you, Several years ago, my daughter had 3 of her friends' parents go through a divorce, so she came up to me and said, Dad, are you ever going to leave us? I said, no, honey, I'm never going to leave you. But you're going to leave me. And I've got a calendar marking down the days. Absolutely. It's just part of it. And so I want to recognize that with parenting, I'm not raising kids. Think about it. A tree farmer, is he raising saplings or is he raising trees? So we're not raising kids. What are we raising? Adults. I have one of each. I have a 13-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. I'm raising a woman.
I'm raising a man. How is simply telling them what to do all the time and not wanting to nurture their natural decision-making skills, how is that actually helping prepare them for competent adulthood? The truth is it's not. So in really many ways, this is a leadership model. Now, marriage is a little bit difficult because it's the only relationship that is really supposed to be equal. And so it invites a host of other issues. So we want to appreciate those issues, and we talk to parents about, talk to couples about authentically representing themselves to one another. That intimacy doesn't always feel good. My wife will clearly come to me and say, you know what, Hal, I don't like you right now. And I don't like the fact that I don't like you, so I'd like to talk about it. I will tell you that my wife and I probably have an uncomfortable conversation at least once a day, even when I'm traveling. And because we just don't let stuff go anymore. We've learned, we've been married 17 years, and we've learned, hey, you know what, I don't know if you meant that text to sound insulting, but it really did, so I just want to follow up with you on that. In fact, that just happened sitting there about 30 minutes ago. She was wrong, by the way. But teaching people to represent themselves, and sometimes this means very, very negative. Sometimes it means evaluating how we do things, like initiate sex. One of the things that people love about our seminars is we talk about, you know, a scream-free marriage actually leads to scream-filled sex. And because we talk about that, we've been so passive in the way that we initiate. Some folks initiate, how a couple initiates, and you know this as a researcher, but how a couple initiates is a window into their whole relationship. But it's so passive usually. Most couples, you know, well, do you wanna? And if they say no, well, I didn't want to either, you know. Because we don't want to risk opening ourselves up like that, right? But, or the most popular one, I think, is, you know, the lights are out and we're under the covers and one of us sends a recon hand across to the other side, you know, and you're touching sensitive areas to gauge, is there any receptivity at all? And if there's not, you know, you just pull that hand right on back. But contrast that with a scream-free way of doing it, and it's just kind of being open and honest about who you are and what you want. It's, you know what, honey, I know that nothing that could happen tonight is going to magically erase everything that we're struggling with. But I do have to tell you that I've been thinking about you all day. And what I want to do is I want to take care of the kids tonight. And then I want to take care of you. Now, ladies, yeah, a little more attractive, right? Again, I really like the metaphor of the train and the tracks. I really do, because the success of the train is going to be how well the tracks deliver into the real lives of people behind closed doors, right? And so I think we have to work on removing some of the obstacles, some of the stigmas about what is preventing people from taking advantage of the amazing resources. One of the things that I've been so impressed with the Army is the amazing talented people and the amazing resources that are available. You know, when I hear people out in the public, now that I've been to about a dozen installations, and I hear people out in the public, well, the Army doesn't do enough to take care of their military families, that is the absolute lie. You guys do so much. And I think the civilian world needs to learn from how you guys handle these chaotic situations. Because if we can all participate in helping reestablish leadership in the home, reestablish calm couples in the middle as the center of communities, in the Army, well, how much could we do that in the rest of society as well? We had no intention of reaching out to military families. We just got a call from Fort Richardson. We're a nonprofit, and we get to travel around the world teaching folks parenting and relationship skills. And we got a call from Fort Richardson several years ago saying, hey, we're starting to lead families through this. Do you have any curriculum? And hey, well, we do. And so since then, we've been invited to about a dozen. And it has been a distinct honor. Here's what I'm learning, is that because of the sacrifices that you guys make, I get to enjoy a peace-filled home. And yet, because of the sacrifices that I'm asking you to make on my behalf, and because of the things that the enemy's doing to you, well, sometimes the least peace-filled home you're encountering is your own. And that's just wrong. And so I'm honored to be a part of it so far. We've been to Sill, and we've been to Sam, and we've been to about 12, I guess. Anybody here from Fort Hood? Yeah, tons of folks. Yeah, we haven't been to you guys. You guys haven't invited us out yet. So we would love to do that. But thank you for the honor of getting to work with you. It is my privilege.
Thank you, gentlemen. I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to ask the first question because I want to know what happened to the 2-year-old.
Oh, the 2-year-old on the stairs. Well, like me, he only walks with a slight limp these days. All right, here's what happened. I had to, as long as I was staring at him, I could not regain my calm. This is not anxiety-free parenting. I'll be anxiety-free about my kids when I'm dead, right? But it is learning to manage my anxiety. So I did something very counterintuitive. I closed my eyes and just took some deep breaths. And then I kind of acknowledged him, hey, buddy. And then I kind of slowly walked down the stairs, then walked around the stairs, then reached up and got him. And then, you know, don't you ever do that again. Yeah.
Yes, my name is Ruth Wheeler. I'm from Fort Hood, Texas. And I would like to know how to get in contact with you so we can get you to Fort Hood, Texas.
I guess that you is me. We have a booth, 3812, I think. Please come by. We would love to meet you. Or you can just email me at hal@screamfree.com. hal@screamfree.com. And that's our website, screamfree.com.
All right, and a question from this room back here.
Hi, my name is Christy Kaufman, recently out of Fort Bragg, former FRG volunteer. I wanted to say to the chaplain, from the point of view of, again, an FRG volunteer, I have been so impressed by the chaplains and their ability to step up and walk that line. I noticed that you used the word spiritual and not religious, and I know that's got to be tough. And I know a lot of guys and girls that came in to do this are doing things that they never thought they were going to do, just like we do as spouses and as FRG volunteers. So I really want to commend the Chaplain Corps for stepping up and doing that. My question is, yay. My question is, we've heard some really fantastic stuff up here today, and there's such great programs out there, and we all know that. I think the challenge has been how we integrate them more effectively. I think we as FRG leaders are that pivotal link, and it's very difficult, particularly after 9 years, to keep that kind of FRG volunteerism going, and we all know that. We're pretty exhausted. So one of the concerns that I really have is the mental health of family members themselves. And I know the Army is making a concerted effort right now to address the suicide problems among the service members. I don't think what we're talking about here is how many spouses are struggling. I myself personally know 3 spouses that have taken their own lives. Yeah. And I'm wondering with Strong Bonds, because it's such a great delivery platform, best program I think the Army has to deliver these kind of things. And I know we have comprehensive soldier fitness and we're trying to integrate that in. But can you just talk about the efforts to address specifically those mental health impacts that we're dealing with? Because we're dealing with our husbands or our service members' mental health impacts, but then we have our own that may or may not be related to what they're going through. And I think the marriage parts of this and the counseling are really important, but I really do think that we need to think a little bit more about how we can integrate how to help ourselves.
Yeah, that's a great question. Residual effects on our soldiers are affecting our family members. Deployments have an effect not just on the spouse, but on the children. And so this last 9.5 years of what we've gone through as an Army, highly emotional. A lot of things have cropped up. You know, suicide, by the way, according to the World Health Organization, depression is the #2 debilitating disease in our world right now, often leading to suicide. We have had a large and increasing number of suicides among our spouses and also our children. So what we are attempting to do is to take some of these great products that we probably inundated our soldiers with and ensure that they're getting to the families as well, because it is about the Army community. Let me address it in two respects. First of all, let me address it from the standpoint of the collaborative effort as a result of the suicide prevention program, working in conjunction, not just the chaplains working their programs and the ACS and FMWRC working their program, but actually sitting around the table and looking at best practices and how we can ensure that we are covering the entire military community, not just camps, posts, and stations, but also throughout our 54 states and territories for our reserves and our Guard, looking at those practices that can best meet the needs of our spouses. Secondly, in regards to mental health, I'm not sure if there's still some folks here from MedCom, but we are looking at a behavioral health care comprehensive program, again focusing on mind, body, and spirit. As we look at mental health issues, it's not just totally in the MedCom arena, but it is something where we're collaborating together from all of the health practices, if you will, for the human dimension to ensure we're taking care of not just our soldiers, but also our spouses and children who are dealing with mental health issues. Now, John, you're here. Would you like to add anything to that, to the answer on the mental health piece, since you're working at MedCom? Yeah. Can we do that kind of if we got time?
And I'll do it real quick. Think of the chaplain corps in all of its diversity, placed in units, placed in garrisons, placed in MedCom, both in the institutional side of the house, the operational side, kind of extending the continuum of care that behavioral health always represents in a supportive kind of way, but in a more synchronized and integrated way. Here's what you can expect. What the chaplain corps will always have is absolute confidence if you come to us. But what we've created is a more collaborative, synchronized, integrated bridge with behavioral health that we will be able to look at trends together. We'll sit around tables together. Here's the other thing that happens, quite honestly. There's still a little bit of a thing called stigma in many places with behavioral health. Now, as the command chaplain for the medical command, quite honestly, I continue to just be amazed about that, because it's my great privilege and honor to work with some of the most caring, sensitive, thoughtful behavioral health providers in the world. And so one of the things I think will come out of this comprehensive behavioral health system of care, we will become natural conduits with families that are damaged in very serious emotional ways. So that when it goes beyond the supportive thing that the chaplain corps represents, and we say to people that come to us, you might need a little bit more than I can help you with, they can look at us and say, could you possibly recommend somebody? And because we've got great collaboration with our behavioral health brothers and sisters, we'll be able to say, yes, here's a provider here that I think would be just right.
Yep.
And so we'll be doing this more collaboratively together, get away from the stovepipes. And honestly, I think you're going to like what's coming next, truthfully.
Let me just kind of follow up with that regarding our spouses. You know, one of my biggest concerns, I think back to one of our installations I visited, and a question came up about a spouse, a concern that spouse stayed in her pajamas the entire 12 to 14 months and no one could get her out of the house. And I know that was probably an isolated case. But then it makes me think then, how are we as spouses working within the context of that community to get those individuals out to Starbucks or to a book club or to the thrift shop, or connecting them to others for the help that they need, so that they are not isolated and they are in this deployment, they're all alone and they have no support groups. And that is a great challenge. And I think what this war has done for us is to make us aware, to be more sensitive to those needs of the families that are around us, those who are living in our stairwells next door to us, getting engaged in their lives. And that, to me, is one of the best ways to ensure that those who are thinking self-destructive behaviors, that they have someone they're accountable to. And I want to commend the Family Readiness Group leaders for what you do. I can only imagine the phone calls, the emails, and all the things that you're doing, and yet there are some of those that are still out there that are dislocated from all the help that is literally surrounding them. So I can only tell you that from the Army staff that we will do everything in our power to help remove some of those barriers or whatever's necessary. Because, you know, one suicide of a spouse, as Sergeant Major Preston said, one soldier's suicide is too many, one spouse's suicide is too many, as well as you've heard of all of these great resources that are available all around us, getting that word out, again, accountable to one another. I just ask you to continue to do that. Great question.
Thank you, sir. We're out of time for questions, everybody. I apologize. I know many of you still have questions. Please do provide those to us so we can get the answer back to you. And now I'd like to thank the panel and welcome Ms. Sylvia Kidd back to the stage.
First of all, I want to thank all of our great speakers. You all have provided great information. We've been able to laugh, which we all need to do. And I hope that you all will follow up. We will help you make the connection if you need to find out how to connect. And please take advantage of all that we have available for you.